Hey everybody, Chappelle Globonaut, and I'm back in Kerbal Space Program with a tutorial on Principia as per popular request. I've had a few comments asking for it, so here it is. We're just going to cover the basics. I'm going to close all the Principia menus. I'm just going to keep MechJeb up there because I like having it there. It's useful for controlling things, but we're going to close all the menus and we're going to go from scratch. How can I use Principia to play the game and enjoy it? Because a lot of people will install it. It's going to look wacky and stupid and not make any sense, and then uninstall it because no one wants to feel like an idiot when they play their video games. So I'm going to explain what it does first, and then we're going to look at how to use it. Over to the fancy graphics. So what is Principia? What does it actually do to the game to make it play differently, and why does it look so complicated and weird? Well, first we need to understand how the stock physics model works. In Kerbal Space Program, the stock physics model works using something called patched conics. There's loads of math stuff related to this, don't need to worry about that. The really basic way to think about it is when you're in orbit of a planet, say Earth, you're affected by only Earth's gravity. Now in this picture we've got a rocket, it's near Earth, the arrow is just the gravity, and the red line there is the moon's sphere of influence. We're outside the moon's sphere of influence, so according to the game, the only gravitational body acting on our spacecraft is Earth. Now if we were to cross that boundary, you can see there, now it's just the moon. We're in the moon's sphere of influence. Earth's gravity no longer has any influence on our spacecraft. It's just going to calculate it using the moon's sphere of influence and the moon's gravitational pull. That's it. That's all stock does. This makes the calculations very simple, makes the game run nicely, makes things easier to understand for beginners. Principia changes that, and it changes it to something called n-body physics. And what this means is that all bodies will pull on your spacecraft at once with the amount of gravitational pull that would be realistic and calculated by the game. So in this example we've got our spacecraft in orbit. Now obviously the primary body pulling on it is Earth, so it's got a nice big green arrow to show that. But in Principia you're also getting pulled on by the moon slightly, despite the fact that you're outside its main sphere of influence, and we've got a little green arrow to show that. So what that means is your orbit's going to get perturbed by the moon, by the sun, by all sorts of different things. So it's never going to be on rails exactly the same every time you go around. Even things like the bulge of the Earth can affect your orbit. Because Earth's not such a perfect sphere, there's more gravitational pull at the equator, and that can affect your orbit. If we then move into the moon's sphere of influence, that's going to be the primary body, but Earth still has an effect. So it's basically making it more realistic. In real life, when you go to the moon, the Earth's gravity just doesn't stop affecting your spacecraft. And this lets you unlock and do some really cool things that you can't do in default KSP, that people like NASA and JAXA and the European Space Agency, all these people use these new trajectories using this kind of n-body physics. And it's really cool that you can recreate that in KSP with Principia. Right, we've cleared that up. Let's look at using Principia. Principia you can open with this, and this is your main menu, right? This is the standard, normal, we go back here to change things menu. And there's a few basic functions here you need to know how to use. First off, go to the map screen. Max history length is kind of self-explanatory. If we increase it, the moon's right there. Bring it up, and you can see it tells us the history of where that object has already been. And in the case of the moon, it's been in a lovely stable orbit of the Earth, as to be expected. I'm just going to bring that down again, but you can also see it's true for your spacecraft. Now mine's going to look a bit weird because I changed my inclination here. So my orbit was originally equatorial until I got to here, and I burned and I changed my inclination. If you know how that works, you know how that works. If not, don't use Principia. Learn how basic orbital maneuvering works in normal Kerbal Space Program first, because your fundamentals will apply here. Right, let's take off the max history length. Boom, back down to 0. Next button you're going to use a lot, steps. If I decrease it, oh, my orbit's disappeared. No, it's not disappeared. I've just decreased the amount of time into the future. Principia calculates where my orbit's going to be. If I increase it again, that's further into the future where my orbit's going to be. If you increase it a lot, it first off doesn't like it because it's laggy. But second off, you can start to see some of the effects of Principia. In this case, my orbit starts to precess around the Earth because of the fact that Earth is not perfectly spherical. The equator of the Earth is pulling my spacecraft round a little bit, and that's what that is, but we won't get into that. That's a thing we can talk about in a different video, and that I have already talked about in a different video. We're going to bring the steps down again so it looks a bit more familiar and friendly, and this is what we like. Tolerance also is useful. It basically determines how accurate within a certain distance the prediction is going to be. In this case, it's accurate within a meter. If I increased it to a kilometer, for example, it's now accurate within a kilometer, and that's basically the game giving you some wiggle room in case you're lagging out. You're predicting really far into the future, you can decrease the tolerance if you don't need to be super precise, and that's going to make the game run a bit smoother. If you click KSP features, you can display patched conics, which I wouldn't recommend doing it, and you can also select target celestials. You don't need to do that with this mod. I'm going to show you how to do planning and things without it. That's pretty much it for the basic menu. Now we can look at the flight planning menu, and this is where you're going to spend a lot of time, especially if you're new to this mod and you're trying to do some crazy stuff. Click flight plan, click create flight plan, and this is basically your maneuver node editor for Principia. If we click add maneuver, here we are, we've added a maneuver. You can see it there, that's your little maneuver editor, but you can't edit with it. You need to use the draggable things here. Don't know what they're, sliders. That's the word you're looking for, folks, sliders. And you can't also drag it around. Oh, you can. What? Well, hold on a minute, guys. My mind's just been blown. Look at that. You can't edit the plan with it, but you can change where it is. Oh, that's so useful. I've been using the slider the whole time, which does the same thing, but I didn't know you could drag it around like that. You see, you learn everything when you make tutorials. You learn new stuff. That's quite cool. I really like that they've put that in. I didn't even know that was a feature. Right, forget T initial. Who needs that when you can drag it around? But you can drag it around. It's good to know. It's good to know. We're going to put it out in our next orbit so we can actually have a look at changing our trajectory. Now, if you've used the maneuver node editor in normal Kerbal Space Program, you'll be familiar with all of these directions. We've got the green one, which is your prograde retrograde, the blue one, which is your sort of in and out, moves the orbit around a point, and you've got the binormal one there, which is just your inclination change. So it's the same as default KSP. The color coding has been matched to make it easier to transition to Principia. If we do that on here, for example, I don't know, increase our prograde, you're going to find that you can't actually see anything. Why is that? Well, our plan length isn't long enough. We need to increase the plan length, and that calculates it further into the future. It's like the steps button, except for your planned trajectory rather than your current actual trajectory. If we keep increasing our velocity at our prograde vector here, you can see business as usual. This is kind of your expected trajectory. If you've done any Kerbal Space Program at all, you'll recognize this fairly straightforwardly. And then say you wanted to do a move somewhere else, like here, you can bring it around like so. And then if you wanted to add another maneuver, you can. So we can also bring that round, and that's going to follow your planned trajectory. And then say you wanted to circularize that, well, we all know how to do that too, don't we? Just do that and increase the plan length a little bit. And there you go. There's a basic home and transfer. We can probably decrease that a little bit to make it more circular. But you get the idea. I like being able to see the entire process. I think it's really cool that you can see your entire flight plan in this way. But if you've done normal Kerbal Space Program, this is a maneuver that you probably would have done at some point, increasing or decreasing the radius of your orbit. Pretty straightforward stuff. Let's do something a bit more complicated that involves the scariest thing about Principia, and that is reference frames. Now, if you've sat in a car before, which I presume most of you have, other vehicles are available. When you're moving along in that car, the world moves around you, right? You're stationary from your point of view. It's the earth and the cars and the trees and the pedestrians and the crackheads you drive past when you go through central London. They all go past you. But when you're on the street and a car drives past you, it goes past you, you're stationary on the pavement. That's called an inertial reference frame, and it's kind of how we picture everything with Principia. And this is where it can get pretty crazy and confusing, because reference frames, I think, is the hardest thing for people to understand when they play this mod for the first time. Let's clear this flight plan so we can see what I'm talking about, because otherwise it's just going to look like way too much. Don't need that. You can also click delete flight plan. That's going to clear the whole thing, and we can close that window. We don't need it anymore. Right, if we click this button, plotting frame selection, at the moment this looks very friendly and familiar if you've played normal Kerbal Space Program, because we're in an Earth-centered inertial reference frame. That's pretty easy to understand. If we click that, there's all sorts of different planets, and if you've got other things installed, they'll be there, hopefully. If you're on normal Kerbal Space Program, you'll have the stock system. But basically, you're choosing a vessel or planet or moon or star that your entire trajectory on your screen is going to be based around. Now, if I just minimize that, we're just going to keep it on the Earth and the moon for now, because that's going to be easy to follow. If I then click, instead of keeping it on the Earth, we do a moon-centered reference frame. Oh fuck, this is crazy. What's going on? Our orbit's going to crash into the Earth and then go wiggly woggly out. But let's just time warp forwards and actually try and make sense of this. Well, we're still orbiting the Earth, but the Earth's moving along. Oh, I see. We're sort of following the Earth, and our trajectory is predicting that. Well, that's strange. Oh, well, if we go to the moon, this starts to make a lot more sense. Let's time warp around and look. Now the Earth's going around the moon. If we increase the max history length, that green is our orbit around the Earth. So we can follow the Earth around using that, and it's orbiting the moon. Now, obviously from the moon's perspective, the Earth orbits it. But from people on Earth, the moon orbits the Earth. Now, this is what reference frames are. It's kind of like choosing what car you want to sit in on a street. If you sit in one car, the world around you is going to go one direction. If you sit in another car, the world around you is going to go in the other direction. They're both, you know, moving relative to one another. There's no single one real reference frame from which to view everything. Everything's relative. And that's what this is. And this is so useful. And once you understand this, this is where the game can get really cool and you can do some really cool stuff. Right, so we've gone over reference frames. Hopefully that made some sense. We can actually use all the information we've learned so far now to plan a flight to the moon. So let's do that, and hopefully you can see where all this information can come in handy. We'll click on the flight plan. We'll do it as last time, where we just created a maneuver. Let's increase the history length, because we're going to want that to see roughly where the moon's orbit is. There we go. We can see it's going to be like that. We're not on the same inclination, but let's not worry about that. We don't need to worry about that. We can do it another way. We're just going to burn up prograde as if we were doing a standard moon transfer. And you can see we just need to increase our flight plan length. Let's give it a couple of days. It's going to complain, but that's fine. We don't need to worry about that warning. Bring it up. And we'll just do the basics, sort of where we intersect the moon. Obviously with our inclination it's wrong, so we can change the time of the burn to find where we're going to intersect the moon next. And let's do it over on the other side, because that's roughly where the moon's going to be when we make the burn. Oh, and you can see already, look at that. Our orbit is definitely getting perturbed there by the moon. That's the pull of the moon changing our inclination there. That's so cool. You can see that just from the Earth's reference frame too, which you couldn't do in normal Kerbal Space Program. Let's bring it forward a bit more so we're actually intersecting. That's going to obviously bring us away from the moon a little bit, but we're going to want to do this anyway. There we go, we're intersecting like that. And now if we want to fine tune this, we can actually click the moon's reference frame, go to the moon here and edit our orbit and bring it in. Look at that. There's no encounters. We just select the reference frame we want, and we can actually see the gravitational pull on our spacecraft in real time. We can also adjust the inclination. We can pull it in. We might be able to want to do some of this. In fact, if we want to change the inclination, we probably want to change the time as well that we do it. There we go. And if you want to actually get an equatorial orbit, let's just add another maneuver. Bring it out. There it is, you can see it there. Go to our apoapsis, where our slowest speed will be, because that's the best time to do inclination changes, is about there. And then we can change the inclination just from here. There you go. That's a flight plan to the moon from the moon's perspective, and there's a flight plan to the moon from the Earth's perspective. If we let that play forward now, it's going to fling us off into space, bring us around the Earth again, and we can just follow the orbit of our spacecraft like that. Now if we wanted to do a free return trajectory, for example, let's bring that back a little bit. Whoopsie daisy, that's a bit too much. We'll increase the flight plan time, so we're going to get slingshot at the moon there. It's going to bring us all the way out, and we can actually see where our predicted perigee is. Let's try and do a free return trajectory. So let's edit the second maneuver node like so, and bring our perigee down, and we can intersect the Earth's atmosphere. And let's bring that down a little bit. Decrease the plan length. We only need to see one iteration of that orbit. There you go. That's at, what's that? It's hard to tell. 30 kilometers up. That's well within the atmosphere. So there's a free return trajectory in Principia. How cool is that? Obviously we can just decrease that because we don't need that. We know that we're going to hit the atmosphere and that's going to change. So we can just remove that. And there we go. From the moon's perspective, let's see what that looks like. We've still got a nice close flyby, and then it's going to fling us back to Earth. Look, we go up into the moon's sphere of influence, gets dragged around here, back up here, and then back to Earth there. How cool is that? It's awesome, and that's how you use it. And hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if it was.